welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be my husband and I building a cave piece for one of our animals' enclosures. When it comes to decorating your reptile enclosures with ornaments, whether it be caves, hides, decorations, or some sort of basking platforms, it can be a little bit difficult to find exactly what works best for you and your animal, and also it can be really expensive. Since I've been keeping reptiles, I have noticed that the prices of some of these ornaments are astronomical. Sometimes they're very hard to find, sometimes they're not the right size or depth or shape or color. It can be pretty overwhelming when trying to get a scape of what your enclosure is going to look like and make it all make sense in terms of enrichment for your animal to help them thrive. But also, a lot of people like to have kind of themes going on, and some of these pieces just don't make sense with each other, and so it can be kind of overwhelming when you are trying to figure out what the best thing to buy is, when there's so many options, they're so expensive, and some of them are really hard to find. So since we are expanding our little zoo over here, it just kind of makes more sense for us to make a lot of stuff by hand instead of buying them. We have started to make our own plant ornaments by using a clay base and sticking random plants in there so that they are kind of not only beneficial to the animal, but they're also more unique, and you know that no one else has them because they're not available in store. That is something that I like about this whole situation, is that I can really custom build stuff without anybody else having the same exact thing. So when it comes to some of our animals, a lot of the things that you can buy in stores or online do make sense for them, but a couple of our animals, like our two large lizards, it should be a little bit easier for them. They should really have a more naturalistic feel to their enclosures, and it's hard to do that already with things that you can buy in store without spending a whole lot of money. So in this particular video, we are building a huge cave piece for our Uromastyx cheeks. It's going to include a UVB basking ramp, a cave, and a set of stairs that he can climb, as well as hide underneath should he want to. It's going to look really cool, and it's going to improve his life a lot and make more sense to him. When we first set up his enclosure, it was difficult to find things that made sense for him as an animal, as well as what he would kind of live around in the wild. Now, obviously, what we have built today is not something that you're gonna find out in the wild. You can tell that it's homemade. You can tell that it is built in a different way by human hands versus naturally created by the earth. He's currently scratching around it if you can hear that. But it does look really cool, and it does what I want it to do. Because he's a Uromastyx, it's very important for him to have better access to his UVB to help mimic the sun just a little bit more. So we needed something that had height to it. I wanted one of the sides to have a ramp that sloped down, and then one of the sides to have stairs so that he had a different texture going up or down. I wanted him to have two separate areas to go underneath, where he could get out of his lights a little bit, but he was still out in the open. And then I wanted him to have a really large, deep cave area that he could burrow into if he felt like it. Uromastyx lizards are a burrowing species, so it is important to give them something to burrow into, but I really don't enjoy having a loose substrate in there for him. I think that the slate tiles work best for him in particular, especially with his legs and everything. He does have early stages of metabolic bone disease, so we just want to make things as comfortable for him as possible, but I do want to give him the option to burrow. What's also nice about his burrowing cave is that I can use a loose substrate in there that I can mist down every now and then when he's going through a shed, so that his entire enclosure doesn't have a bunch of humidity within it, because they do need a low humidity, but it gives him a humid spot to go to help slough off that old skin. For the substrate for him in his cave, I did decide to use Eco Earth, which is just coconut fiber that retains moisture very well, but also dries out pretty fast. So currently right now, it is completely dry in there, but when he's going through a shed, I can mist it down a little bit to give him that humidity that he needs. So this video is pretty self-explanatory. I'm just gonna show you guys how we built this piece, and I'll tell you everything that we used and how we did every single step, so that if you wanna try and build something for your animals as well, this is a great way to do it. So I'm gonna get on to the build, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so this is day 1, which probably took the longest of all the days because this is the design period. So first we begin our design period where we figure out how we want the piece to look. So we cut pieces of foam, glue them together with hot glue, and visualize the finished product. As you can see, we started with the front stairs, which has a large piece at the top which connects to the UVB platform, and it also has a bracing column so nothing caves in. Next, we started creating the cave, which we will shape later, but you see here that we had to take pieces that looked like triangles and create that triangular cave shape that goes in the back of the enclosure. On top of the cave is where the UVB platform takes place, which is the large piece that you're seeing there. After that, we added rounded pieces to the front of the cave where the opening will be, and this will also have a slight lip to try and hold in the substrate a little bit better. He's going to dig around a lot, but at least this will catch a lot of that fallout. Next up, we created the stairs for the left side of the piece that connects to the UVB platform. We later decided to slope them into a ramp rather than stairs for a different texture. One hugely important part of this entire process is what you're seeing here, which is to always check your measurements. That is so important. And finally, for day 1, we filled in all the gaps that we could with spray foam. This was not our favorite foam, but it did an okay job. And then we let this foam and the hot glue completely dry overnight. Starting day 2, we cut off the excess foam and began to shape the entire structure by getting rid of all of the squared edges and making the steps as even as possible. We kept on the square connective pieces and sloped them out a little bit more for some interesting leveling when he walks across them. Then we sloped out the stairs of the UVB ramp, which gives a more natural feel and a little bit more dimension. Next up, we used a Dremel tool with the grinding bit on the end to carve out the cave opening and round it out a little bit more. And this is most definitely when I began to regret doing this whole project inside my house. The cleanup was crazy. Once we got the cave nice and rounded out, we used the same tool to rough up all the edges of the entire structure because grout will not stick to anything smooth. It has to have a rough texture underneath to be able to stick. For day 3, we mixed up the grout, which I will have linked down below, and let me tell you that the color of this grout is called Light Smoke, and it is a very nice kind of taupey grayish brown color, but in this clip you can see it looks straight up like baby poop. I was definitely freaking out a little bit thinking this was going to be the color of this whole entire piece, but thankfully after a few layers and everything, it dried perfectly fine and looks really great. So we painted on the first layer, filling in all the porous areas, and we left it to dry overnight. For day 4, we are applying our second layer, and as you can see, it is a better color. Oh my goodness, I was so thankful to wake up that next morning and see this beautiful color that does not look like baby poop. I mean, it kind of looks like baby poop on the second layer, but it's really not so bad. What we also decided to do is to smooth out all of the brush strokes with a sponge. So you can see that when we're painting on this layer of grout, you can clearly see brush strokes, and that's not very natural at all. So with the sponge, it gives it a much more sandy texture, which is much more natural. And this is what you're seeing on day 5. This is 3 completely dried layers of grout, which looks fantastic and rough in texture and so natural. Now for day 6, we are almost done. We covered the entire piece with sealant. What we used is linked down below, but I will tell you it's polyurethane, and I know a lot of people get a little worried about that, but it is perfectly safe and completely waterproof once you let it cure completely overnight at least, but we gave it a couple of days. We made sure to coat every single nook and cranny to ensure longevity and the ability to clean it easily, and we also tested it with water to make sure that it was waterproof and that everything rolled right off, and it certainly did. We had the intention of adding 2 layers of the sealant, but after 1 coat, we tested everything and it dried perfectly fine and sealed everything in without anything breaking apart, so we felt that it was perfectly fine to just have 1 layer, but that's totally up to you. And we have made it to day 7, our final day. This is the finished piece. As you can see, we used epoxy to attach natural rocks from our yard to the structure surface, as well as a few fake leaves there in the back. I am obsessed with this piece. I'm getting Aztec vibes, and I know it's going to be fantastic for him. You can obviously design it however you want to. This is just the vibe that I wanted to have, and I'm in love with it. And here's the finished piece inside of his enclosure. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I know the background is kind of distracting. It looks a little rough. We actually sanded down the uneven pieces that were on the background so that the piece could sit more correctly inside of the enclosure. And we went a little bit too far, but that's fine. And there's also a giant crack in the center, but that's fine too. Just ignore that, okay? All in all, we completed this project in 7 total days, but we did drag that out to about 15 days. I think that it could be done in 7 full days, but I also think it's best to give it a little bit more time for things to cure for as long as possible, just for the safety of the animal. Well, alright guys, that's going to be it for my video today. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you love our piece that we made for Little Cheeks. He is enjoying it so much. I think that it adds a lot of enrichment to his enclosure, as well as the ability for him to thrive better, and it looks really nice in there as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button on your way out. I really appreciate it. Also hit that notification bell so you can know when I upload next, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!